Hey everyone, my name's John and I've got a new VR game coming out. The game's called Neon Cipher and it takes inspiration from titles like Moss and Portal. You use both third-person and first-person controls in order to solve puzzles and take out enemies that stand in your way. The game comes out on June 6th, which you can wishlist now on both Steam and MetaQuest. Links are in the description below. But for this video, I wanted to take a look at the project and some of the systems that make Neon Cipher work. If you guys are interested in seeing some of these systems more in depth, maybe we can turn it into a series, but for now, let's hop into the project. All right, so welcome to the Unity project. So this is a Unity 6 project. I started developing in Unity 2021.3, I believe, but I switched over a little bit later to Unity 6 just because I wanted some of the performance stuff that they were offering there. But yeah, I think a good place to start is the scenes folder. So as you can see, sort of in my assets directory here, I try and keep things a little bit organized. You can kind of ignore the stuff at the bottom, but this is just basically the way that I organize the top of the project here is mostly for this tree here so that I can always see sort of the important headings, and they're always in a very specific order, which isn't necessarily, it's more of an importance order for me, not necessarily like not like alphabetical order or anything. But yeah, if we go into scenes, we have another little sort of a few folders here. We've got outdated, which is just basically from the older version of the game that was meant as a demo for my school project. In this one, all the tutorials had sort of, they were baked into levels, and then we had the old editor, which we can see is very, as you'll see in a second, I guess, is very bare bones here. Wasn't able to really do much with the actual editor in this case, but if we back up a bit, we've got our next section, which is the dev section. This is sort of for scenes that are have specific purposes for development. So for example, there's like the model sandbox here, which basically has a lot of models in it for doing various things like testing, like for example how the pressure pad moves up and down when something goes on it, or like box respawning, or like testing intersection stuff for the bridge, the light bridge, or doing just simple stuff like doing the shaders for each of these, or materials, or whatnot. Another example might be the animation scene. So we've got here just like a line for reference for animation, as well as just making it so that I don't have to put this stuff in the main gameplay scene in order to work on it. But yeah, so that's, I guess, the dev section, and the most important section back here is the build section. So these are all the scenes that are in the game. If you go to the build profiles here, scene list, you can see that it's the same stuff, not in alphabetical order like it is in here. But this just makes it super easy so that if I need to do something weird where I need a special build that doesn't have stuff in it, or it has a different scene in it or something, I need to test on Android on the actual device or something like that, I need to make a build, I have access to all the scenes here that I can just plot back into this scene list. But I guess we'll start at the top here. We've got the editor. There's the keyboard down at the bottom. So the main sort of part of the editor here is this monster of a inspector. It's called the inspector, same as in the Unity inspector here. It does basically the same thing. But yeah, so the inspector here, turn it off and on. It looks a lot busier here just because every single page is available and on at the moment, because I need them all to run their start functions. But only at runtime, only one of these pages will be available at a time. So you can see the current menu here in the editor inspector. I can set it for my debug purposes. It should be at welcome for the actual build. But you can see here there's a welcome page, there's a new level page, load level page, resize, block select, block info, a save dialog, etc., etc. And yeah, so by the way, if you want to see how that works more in depth, let me know in the comments. Maybe I can do some more in-depth videos on some of these. This is just basically an overview of the project, a very high-level overview. So let me know if there's anything else that you're interested in here. I guess that kind of takes us over into, if we're talking about levels, that takes us over into the gameplay scene. So as you can see here, we don't really need to save there. There isn't really much in the gameplay scene. normally, or it's very common that you'll see each level has its own scene in a Unity game. I knew right from the beginning that I wanted to have the players being able to make their own levels as a core part of the game. So I started with that at the very beginning of the project and basically implemented it so that the gameplay scene is basically empty of actual level stuff, and the level manager here will instantiate everything on Awake based on a level file. So if we kind of go back here in our assets, there's a folder called resources. Now this isn't one of the fancy numbered all caps folders, because this actually specifically has to be typed like this. It's one of Unity's special folders. So like how there's the editor folder, which will, if you put scripts in the editor folder, they will only be in the editor environment. They won't be added to the build. Resources is a folder that all of these files that are in here will be packaged as part of your build. So in the example of Windows, it will be in a specific folder in the Windows build. But what's more important here is for Android, it'll put these files as part of the APK package, which you can't just easily add them yourself. So that's where all the built-in levels are. The custom levels are going to be saved and loaded dynamically in the app data area, or the persistent data path. But for the stuff that's built in, that's all going to get copied in through the streaming assets, or resources in this case. So let's take a look at one of these. We've got say level 11 trash compactor. So we can see it's just a YAML file, very basic description of basically where everything is. I really like YAML as my favorite markup language. Some people prefer JSON, some people prefer XML. I really like YAML. I just think it's the cleanest looking for files specifically. But you can see it's got the name, it's got the dimensions, and then description of all the tiles. So the basic one is basically coordinates and the type. If we scroll down a little bit, you see here's the player start, very similar layout. If we scroll down more, I'll find something a little more complex. So we can see here is a slope. So we've got type slope, we've got its coordinates, so that's at 1, 2, 2, and then the rotation as well. Both of these, what was really handy is just having them both as they can cast directly into the enums, which is great for just making things easy on myself. But I'm gonna find something a little bit more complicated as well. Got some enemies. Oh yeah, here we go. So we've got now, there's type player movable. So we've got the coordinate here, we've got the rotation, but now we also have a move amount. So we can see here that this one moves down by 2 blocks. That's the travel distance there. The player movable is the one that the player can reach out with their controller and grab and move themselves with their actual physical hands. It doesn't need to be controlled by a button or a pressure pad or whatever. The last part you'll see also is the key, and this is important for the instantiation part of the level manager. We'll see that over here now, I guess. So in the level, you'll see all the prefabs are sort of put in the inspector here, except for the movables are not. And I will say, just because this was one of the first things I was doing when I was making the project, I just put all these here in the inspector like this and hard-coded them into the inspector. I wouldn't do that again necessarily. I would do more like what I did here, which has it has the movable dictionary here. So as we can see, we've got the player movables, self movables, and then it's just entries with a key and then a prefab. So it's really easy to just add more or take away them when we don't need them, etc. But as an example, I didn't add the bridge, the box, and the pressure pad until later, so I had to go in and manually add these into all the scripts and stuff. Whereas when I was going and adding more movable sizes, it was super easy to just drop them in, drop the prefabs in, and then just create the new keys, and then they would all just work properly with the files and stuff like that. So that's I guess the layout for how things are instantiated. If you want more in depth on like the tile map, the 3D tile map that I used, or like how we're reading the YAML files and implementing that and maybe saving it from the editor or something like that, let me know. Again, I might do a video on that. I guess the only other stuff that's really in this scene that we can talk about is there's this black quad here, which is just basically, it's rendered on top of almost everything. As you can see, not this text, but it's rendered on top of most of everything so that we can do a fade transition. And then the text is on top of that specifically so that we can do the fun transition where it's black, the level comes out, the black fades, and then the text fades, as well as the text then doesn't get occluded inside. If you're like looking inside the level itself, it doesn't get like blocked by the level, which is something that I think is super important with VR that we don't talk about a lot, and that is, and I see it a lot in certain games where they don't have stuff like text or HUD rendered on top of the environment. Part of that I think is because most people, when they try and do that in Unity, most people say, oh, use a second camera, but that becomes very performance intensive. For like setting up an extra camera, it takes a lot of CPU effort of that frame. So we actually have to do a little bit more here with you can see here under the shader here, if you have a custom shader, you can set some priorities, and there's stuff that you put on inside the shader to make sure that stuff renders on top. Again, if you want more on that, let me know, because I think it's a super important part of VR that often gets overlooked. But yeah, so it's just that. We've got the, no, that's the wrong thing. Let's get rid of the occlusion quad here. The other thing in here is this is the Hurt vignette, another fun shader. It basically there's a little control here, the alpha, which gets controlled in by the health script. So that's a fun shader. And then what else? There's the environment, which is basically any scene that's not black has this environment with this disappearing grid shader, and then below that is this dotted waving C square dot thing. That was a fun shader to do. But yeah, let's move on here to a new scene. So we've got in our build scenes here, we've got the end scene. No, we don't need to save. This is just a credit scene. Super easy. It's just put all the objects in here. It just does them one after another, fades them in and out one after another with fade time and a hold time. And then of course the button at the end. What else we've got? We've got the error scene. So this scene is just a black scene because there's no environment or whatever. This scene will show up if the gameplay scene tries to render tries to instantiate a level that doesn't have something like there's no door, there's no keys, there's no player start position, or like it had trouble reading the file. That will show up here and let you know that there's something that needs to be fixed about this level before it can be played. We've looked at gameplay already. Let's skip main menu for now. I can go to the splash screen. All these other scenes are at, I think, 20 times scale. So like the one unit is like it's smaller to create that diorama sort of thing and keep the physics working well. But this is the only scene here that is actually at 1:1 scale, which is why it's kind of all the way down here. Again, just fancy shaders on the logo here. If you saw the video I posted on Instagram or whatever about the studio logo, that's just this scene, a screen cap of this scene. But yeah, lots of fun stuff going on with this shader here. We've got the health and safety thing here. The other important part of this splash screen is where stuff like the platform manager is created, and it loads the settings and stuff. So platform manager is just connecting to the Steam API or the Meta API and checking to make sure everything's in order first before it continues on. So that's an important part, as well as any arguments, command line arguments that are passed in when you start the program. That's all handled here as well. And then we've got the voice player. So we've got our guy up here, another fancy holograph shader going on. This is fun. This is the audio spectrum. This reacts to the audio source that's in the scene and playing the audio. So if in the future, for example, I decided to do a French language pack or a Spanish language pack or something like that, it would, and I would, to change the audio, it would update the visuals aren't animations. They would just go off of the audio that's there, which is fun and cool. We've also got captions, which this doesn't have like a temporary text here. I'm gonna put that in slanted captions for the for what's being said. So that is also another one of these streaming, or one of these assets here, these resources. So if we scroll down to the bottom, instead of going through and doing everything in an inspector, for example, I've got these text files, which basically describe, gotta wait for Visual Studio to load up here. They basically describe what the line is, the delay of that line, because sometimes you need a little bit of time between the previous line and the next line to sort of make sure that the person can read the full line. And then the how long it takes for that line to be said. So all of these, it just loads in that specific text file when it gets there to that specific scene, which is fun. And again, that gets packaged in with your build, which is great. And then I guess we'll end things off with the main menu. So again, we've got this occlusion quad, which kind of gets in the way of seeing anything. But yeah, this is the main menu. This is all of the pages of the main menu. So we've got some stuff here from the level select. We've got some stuff from the settings. We've got the actual main menu itself, and then of course there's this touch to begin button, which is I think super important to the game. Basically, the function of the touch to begin button in this case is to set the height of the player. So if you load up the game and say you want to be seated, if you press the touch to begin while you're seated, it will then put the levels and even the main menu itself at a position that's more appropriate for your height. Whereas if you're standing up, and even if you're 12 years old or 25 years old, there may be a height difference there, right? So making sure that the level itself is always at a good height for you. There's also a reset level height in the pause menu, utility menu, in the levels, just in case things you want to change it or whatever. Super important to keep everybody included in the experience, no matter how they're playing, which is great. But yeah, so if you guys have any more questions about this project, let me know in the comments. I'll maybe make another video on it if it seems important enough. And other than that, we've got Neon Cipher coming out on the 6th. So go ahead and wishlist on Steam or Meta. The links will be in the description for that. You can go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you want to see more, or you just kind of want to see what I'm up to. And yeah, we've also got a Discord server for the Exomorph community, so you can go ahead and join that in the description as well. That's gonna tell you things like how to share your custom levels, as well as if you want to grab some custom levels from other people that are posting or share your own, you can go ahead and do that. And with that, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video.